Great catching up with the general over there at Syndicate MMA. John Wood, of course, going to be prepping Merab Dvalishvili for his fight. His title defense coming up here against Cory Sandhagen, UFC 320. John, how's it going? How are you doing?
Awesome, man. Always a pleasure to be on. I appreciate it. Busy. It's this morning, I got my ass kicked all morning and I got to go back and get it kicked all night. So it's all good problems to have, but team's doing great. Everything's doing great. Everybody's prepped and ready. And it's amazing year so far.
Good. Yeah, no, a lot of success. And of course, rolling right into the big pay-per-view coming up here next month. So we kind of knew this fight was going to happen, right, with Merab and Cory. When did you guys know this was like official and you could really start game planning for Cory Sandhagen?
I mean, we pretty much knew kind of before the fight that was the next thing. And then, Cory was there and directly after they had him backstage and they ran into each other and Merab pretty much told him, hey, this is, you're next.
Nice.
So we knew early on there was a little change up there where the UFC kind of threw something at us that, hey, we're going to see how this fight goes. And then we'll let you know for sure. So, there were some other people in the running, but we were pretty 99% sure that it was Cory the whole way through.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wonder, was that wrinkle maybe the Patchy Mix fight? Because I think people thought if he won that, maybe. No, it wasn't? Okay, I was curious about that because...
No. Petr Yan, I think the Yan fight with McGee was the fight they were talking about. The Patchy fight, obviously, I think... that was never, talked about or even brought up or even in the,
no, I was just curious, obviously,
things.
because former Bellator champ, I know sometimes, like we saw with Michael Chandler, he makes his debut, he wins, he gets a title shot, right? So
sure. Yeah. And that makes sense. Obviously that didn't turn out for him. So, here we are.
It didn't. You know what I find interesting about this fight? Like Cory, and correct me if I'm wrong, like he's a little bit different than some of the guys that Merab's fought over the last couple of fights. You look like O'Malley and you look at even Yan and stuff. Sandhagen's kind of got his own thing going on as far as how he fights. So how do you prep for a guy like that that's a little bit different than maybe what he's used to?
It's awesome. Like, it's awesome to be able to fight a guy like this. Sandhagen is a very well-rounded fighter, comes from great teams, got great coaches, different style. He's got different tactics. He's a striker, but he's got also a really good ground game. He's tricky on the ground, tricky with jiu-jitsu. So we've kind of seen bits and pieces of these fights through the last multiple opponents, with O'Malley and Umar. So it's really not anything super crazy, and we're not overemphasizing anything other than what Merab needs to do. I always focus on what our fighter needs to do, what he needs to do to get the job done. Obviously we look at those glaring things that stick out, the footwork and the stance changes and the speed and the striking, and the variety of striking that he has, and also on his ground game. He's tricky. He's got slick jiu-jitsu and things that we have to approach, but there's not a whole lot of things that I haven't seen over the last few years that the Merab can't deal with. We've obviously tightened up on some of those areas that we think that we're going to end up being in, but it's great, man. I love, personally as a coach, these are the things where it's like you're competing at the highest level. The same thing with Merab. He's fighting the best fighters. We're, coaching against the best coaches and coaching against the best fighters. So it really, really helps me step up my game and make sure that I am doing everything I can do to be the best coach for him and to make sure that he has all the knowledge. But Merab is just, again, I'll say it again and again and again. He is just a different beast, man. There's so many special attributes to that guy when it comes to fighting that, obviously I full-heartedly believe that he gets his hand raised in this fight.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting matchup. Now, obviously, when you're winning the way you are, you want to keep things kind of the same. Has there been anything different in camp, whether it's training partners or anything like that for Cory, or have you mainly kept things business as usual?
Yeah, the awesome part about Vegas is that there's always great people coming through, and there's always people moving here. We got just a great influx of world champion kickboxing and strikers and guys that are actually really very well rounded that have been able to emulate Cory and his footwork and these things. Big, tall, rangy guys that they all just kind of showed up at the right time in the last few months, and it's been phenomenal. We got some really, really, really well rounded, great kids and guys that are just taking it to Merab in a different way, and he's passing all the tests. So again, I always get like the sound bites and the shit gets taken the wrong way a lot of times when you start to say, hey, we're looking to build upon our last, situation with the submission. We're looking to get more finishes. We're looking to get more, looking to become a striker that can KO people, looking to be a finisher and change that narrative. And not really changing anything of Merab's, but adding to it, just building blocks. You don't take something that has worked for so well. I'd be a dumbass to say, hey, Merab, we're going to start doing this and doing this. We do everything the same thing we've done camp after camp after camp and just add to it, bring better partners, bring better options. Hey, now that we're dominating so much in this area, let's start to look for these options. Let's start to add these wrinkles into your game and start to do these things. And phenomenal camp, man. Like this guy, every camp, he just shocks me of how much he learns and how much he builds on and adds on from the last camp. How much every single time he spars, he gets better. So everything is just kind of lined up to be, to have the best Merab in there. He's healthy. If anything, it scares me the most that he's how healthy and how he hasn't been cut and things haven't, he
Right.
hasn't busted his head open. He hasn't, there's no gaping wounds for this fight, nothing so far. So, but it's been a brutally hard training camp that he makes look easy. That's the thing, is like you throw things at this guy. I have to find and create ways to throw things at him to keep him, you know, on edge, but he just passes every test so good. It's a really good spot to be in as a coach, to have somebody like him to be able to work with.
You mentioned bringing in guys that are maybe a bit bigger who you got to work with. Then any names that you can mention as far as guys that were kind of maybe more like Corey Speed, so to speak?
Um, yeah, nobody. I'm gonna, one thing I'll
Keep it close
give.
to the vest. Yeah, yeah, I get it. Yeah,
I'll give a couple.
yeah.
Somebody who's actually been really, really good. I'll give a shout out to is Jackson Glass, actually a young kid.
Okay.
One of Cody Steele's, guys from his team in Texas who comes out and work with us a lot. He's 18 years old, and this kid is a phenom on the feet and jiu-jitsu, and he's actually ended up surprisingly, not because of his. Not because of thinking that he's not ready, but like his skill set has been amazing, but I just didn't know how he would deal with the pressure of Merab, and that guy has gotten in there, and phenomenal jujitsu guy, great stand up and big, long, tall. He's like 6 foot, 6'1" already, and is giving Merab, as many rounds as he can before everybody. I'd say everybody gets a good 2 or 3 rounds with Merab before they start to just.
Yeah.
And but phenomenal looks, and shout out to that kid for nutting up and coming out here and helping us, and jumping in some rounds. He's given some of the best looks that we've had, and the kid is going to be a savage. You are going to see that kid in the next few years come out and do. He's already fighting. He was fighting before he was 18. His parents signed off on it, and he's been scrapping, I think, since he was 16 or 17. So he's already in the mix. But he's been one of the guys, I could tell you right off the bat, that has been so good to work with. So really good at leg locks, really good overall. And these things, this camp is the first time where we've thrown a bunch of guys, and we've got a bunch of Ukrainian killers. We've got a couple Russian guys in there right now, that are just monster world champion, like I said, world champion kickboxers, that are all tall, lanky, long guys that giving them great work. And it took them a week or two, maybe I'd say 2 weeks, to start to figure out, like, okay, this is how I'm going to handle this, and it's been really great to watch.
Very cool. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that name. I was just jotting that one down. It's always good to see the future of the sport, kind of take shape. How's this fight playing out? Merab last time, very, vicious, nice finish in that fight against O'Malley. Could we see something similar here against Cory Sandhagen?
That's the plan. Um, Again, I always take a lot of flack for saying, hey, we're now going to try to start to become that finisher. We're looking for the finish. MMA is hard. This shit is hard. And at that level, when you're fighting the best guys in the world, Corey is the next best guy in the world right now. He's so well rounded, comes so well coached, is a guy who's prepared for everything. So to go out there and just say, like, hey, we're going to get finishes. We're going to finish this guy. We're going to knock him out. We're going to kill. That'd be stupid. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's not going to be for lack of trying. I can tell you right now, Merab went out there the other day and said he wants to knock him out. He's going to knock him out. It's a very good chance he does. But if he doesn't, that's a fight. At this level, fights are very hard to finish. But I can tell you this right now, inside of the room, this man has become a finisher. This man has become somebody who is now looking and not only looking, but is able to identify when that finish, when those submissions, when those things are able to be put on and able to happen. And that's something that just wasn't, that was different in the past. Every now and then he would maybe go for a submission here and there, or go for this or go for that. But now he's actively looking. Like we're at the point now where literally I will give him say, hey, I want 2 submissions this round. Go get him. And he'll go out there and get him. The next round I'll come back and say, let's finish at 3 or this, or give me 1, looking. I just give him a number and he goes out there and he will find it. And the same thing with the striking, man. He really is his timing is just so good. His vision is so good. He's just he's growing and growing leaps and bounds with that and the confidence of everything. But obviously our strength is the ground, our strength is the wrestling, our strength is the wrestling. It's the off timing, the weirdness, and we're going to keep doing that. We just find ways to make sure that that's better, to make whoever we're fighting miserable. That is the goal, is to make them miserable, make them not want to be there anymore, and make them make bad decisions. And that's what I think is going to happen in this fight. Again, Sandhagen is a very proficient fighter, so not going to make any bold statements that we're going out there to, he's going to be finished in the second round.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
will say this: Merab will be looking for submissions. Merab will be looking for KOs. That is for sure on the menu.
Yeah, it's really excited for this title fight, and then of course we have the main event between Ankalaev and Pereira. How do you see that rematch playing out? Because there's some thought that Pereira wasn't 100%. Maybe we're going to see a different fight, but where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I've gone on record a couple times and said, hey, I saw Pereira everywhere, all over the place. He was traveling. He was this. He was that. He was all the events. I don't know if that played into things. I don't know if he was injured. It didn't look like the man that had been on this tear 3 or 4 fights before that. Like, the guy was a straight killer. And I think it's way too early to say, oh, he's different, or he's shot, or he's not that guy anymore. We need to see a few more performances before that can happen. But one thing that's always there with a man like that is he has the death touch. That dude touches you, he can hurt you, put you out, kill you. Like, it is ungodly what the kind of power that man has. And I think that, from what I saw in that last fight, he didn't fight his fight. He fought a defensive fight and maybe focused on, not getting taken down, and somewhere got lost in the shuffle of what he needed to do. And so I think that if you see Alex Pereira go out there and throw caution to the wind and fight like a madman, that he's possibly, that he's capable of doing, and he lets it go, it only takes one. It only takes one punch from that man to change the entire course of a fight. That being said, he is fighting a guy who is very well rounded, is very good. Ankalaev is one of those guys that can make it a boring fight, or he can make it an explosive, crazy fight. Like, that's a guy who's just very well rounded, and probably has a overall better skill set than Pereira possibly. But it's an interesting fight, man. I really think if Pereira shows up to go out there and do what we all have seen him do in the past, there's a good chance that happens. I think that if he lets it go and lets it fly, one of those is going to connect.
What about Umar Nurmagomedov and Mario Bautista? Who do you see winning that?
This is a trap fight. This is one of those fights where, and this is exactly what happened with the Patchy fight. Everybody was very hyped on Patchy, but Bautista, I've cornered against him, I think, twice now. He is a tricky son of a gun, and he's just really good all over. He's one of those guys that can make fighters look bad. He's a guy that really just has a skill set that can shut down what you're best at. He knows how to kind of just beat you where you need to be beat. Sometimes it's not the sexiest fashion, but again, that's fighting. But you have to look at the body of this man's work. He's very, very much on a Merab type, rise, where it's potential that those two end up meeting soon. So for me, I'm going to go with the underdog on this one, and I think Bautista gets it done in an ugly fashion and pulls it off and surprises everybody.
Just looking at the division as a whole, and I know we're never any people to look past any sort of fight here with Merab and Cory, but if Merab does go out there, he does get the win like you're expecting. Is Petr Yan next, or do you think there's a possibility that, you just said there Mario could beat, Umar, then maybe Mario gets the shot? Like, what's sort of your thinking of where the division would go if Merab does get this win?
I mean, listen, I think that right now, as it stands, Peter's the next guy.
Yeah.
Great fighter, talented fighter. Um, One of my favorites to watch. I think that he's probably the next guy in line,
Mhm.
but that means nothing in the sense for the UFC. They know how to work the business. They know what sells. They know what their deal is. Like if you say if Batista goes out there and has a phenomenal performance, or the other way around,
Mhm.
where Umar goes out there and sleeps him, like we've seen this before. It took him one, Umar, I don't think beat anybody in the top 10, and took him one fight, one performance where he was able to, didn't even finish, and it got him a title shot, so that last name always carries a lot of weight, and a lot of pull. And I know that they want to promote that fight again. That fight was pushed on us very, very hard. And obviously I'm glad we took it and glad the way it turned out. But you're one step away from him leapfrogging everybody again.
Mhm.
I just think, like I said, that last name carries a lot of weight, whether it's deservedly, so that he deserves that, which I would say he doesn't. But if Batista wins, I think Batista would have to win in some kind of crazy dominant fashion to leapfrog Peter. I don't think that Umar would have to win in that kind of crazy fashion to
Yeah.
possibly have that happen. So one of those three names is what probably makes the most sense for us, or that for the UFC to have happen. But right now, as it sits, I think Peter is is the fight, and I think I think Merab has gone on record in saying that he thinks he deserves it, and I think that Merab actually has a little bit of pull and a little bit of weight that he can make that happen, no problem.
Okay. One other name I'll throw out there, and I know obviously he's going to have a title defense next, is Alexandre Pantoja, only because he's looked so dominant at 125. I think some people are wondering how he would do if he moved up. Does that fight interest your team at all, just to fight another champion from another division?
I mean, listen, if he wants to come up to the division, I think there's no doubt that that's a fight that you make,
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, a champion versus champion, and I think that we're getting probably close in the next few fights to that happening. Depending on what goes on with 125, there's a couple new names and a couple of young guys coming in, but it doesn't feel like they're investing so much into 125 or building it. They never have.
Yeah.
Arguably, you let Demetrius Johnson go, who's arguably one of the best fighters in the world at the time, who's dominant. You let him go to kind of, I don't know what for, but it just feels like that division has never been grown properly or invested in. So I don't know what's left there. Pantoja becomes he's already a dominant champ, and if he clears out a couple more names, then it makes sense to have that super fight,
Yeah.
type of thing. And if he moves up, that's obviously the fight that they would make, that the UFC would book. And does it interest us? Sure.
Yeah.
If it's done at 135, no problem. I don't think that would be, it'd be a great fight. Love fight to see. I just would want that to be hopefully built up. They both gone great winning streaks, and maybe it happens here in the next year or two of that happening. But that's always, that those whispers are being mentioned more and more. So it's definitely potential for
Yeah.
sure.
And we are seeing that in the women's division. We have Weili Zhang moving up to fight Valentina Shevchenko. I was curious. I don't believe you worked with Weili her last fight, but any plans to work with her for this fight against Valentina, since it is stateside?
Yeah, yeah. They're out in Thailand right now. Josh Inger's out there with there, and I think they're coming over in October.
Mhm.
I spoke with her a few weeks ago, and the plan is to get together and start working on early October.
Awesome.
So we'll see.
Mhm.
We'll see how that plays out. That may or may not change, but as of right now, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, just get these guys out, get Khalil and Merab off the books, and then the 20 other fights we've got going, and then
Yes.
just lock down and prepare for her fight if that's what she wants to do.
Yeah, and Khalil was the other name I was going to bring up. How much did he spend like the bulk of the camp at Syndicate? I couldn't see, because I know he was doing some training in California as well. So what does Khalil's camp look like leading into this? Who's also on this card with Merab, which is interesting.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time.
Oh,
Like
he
there
has.
was
Oh, okay, cool.
no
Okay.
yeah, like there's been no California, there's been no nothing. And listen, the last camp, he went out there and tried some things, and there's he's sponsored by that company and sponsored by those guys, and you listen, it's hard to get, good paying sponsors, and obviously there's a lot of good work out there at wherever they're doing their stuff, and there's some good guys out there. But that was one of those things where he would go out there for a few days and then come back here, and it was a lot, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't think that, well, I know that it hasn't happened at all this camp. And I'm quite happy about that. Of just, he's really focused in. There's not the distractions. There's not any of the, I've got to do this. I've got to be here. I've got to do this. I've got to train with this person. I've got to yada yada yada. He's 100% locked in,
Mhm.
and doing the things that he really needs to do. Not only as just as, he's just as a mixed martial artist, not just as a stand-up guy and doing this and focusing that. He's really opened his mind, this camp, to exploring, and really just getting better as an overall MMA guy. And
Yep.
it's the best I've seen him do in the, I think, 13 years or whatever plus I've been with him. He's really turned that corner, and he's taken a different mindset and approach to all this, and he's just kind of just leveling up, leveling up, leveling
Cool.
up. And I expect to see a very one. He's healthy for this camp, which the last one was not the case at all. Two, this is gonna be a violent fight. This is going to be an extremely violent fight, and I've said it before. As a fan, I wish I could just sit back and, you know, drink some beer and watch it. But
Mhm.
I'll watch it on replay after. But I do not expect that fight to go 3 rounds.
No, it's very, very potential fight of the year right there with him and Yuri. I'm looking forward to that one. Do you pay attention to the boxing stuff at all? Obviously, we had Canelo and Crawford last week. What
Yeah,
did you make of Crawford's, big win? And is he the GOAT? A lot of people are sort of saying that with that win.
yeah. I mean, what phenomenal performance. I mean,
Mhm.
to come up, and fight the bigger man and just make him. I mean, he looked pretty damn dominant, dude. Like,
Yeah.
that was a beautiful performance, and just to do what he was doing to Canelo, who is, arguably right now the number one fighter. Maybe not the best fighter, but he's the number one fighter in the world, the most popular. And like I said, to come up and fight a bigger man and look as good as he looked. I mean, how do you not say he's the best in the world right now? The guy's skill set was phenomenal. He made it, I don't want to say look easy, but holy shit, that was a beautiful, boxing performance for him.
Mhm. And what do you make of him and Ilia going back and forth? I don't think that fight's happening anytime soon because I think with Conor it was a bit different. Like Conor was such a big superstar that like it was one of those things that like I think even the UFC was like, okay, we got to do this. But I don't know if we'll
Yeah.
see Ilia go over. He just hasn't fought that much, right? So I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think there's that kind of hype to see that
Yeah.
fight. Connor was one of those things, and maybe the last guy, I can't think of anybody who just had that superstar aura around him. Not
Mhm.
that Ilya is not a superstar, but
Mhm.
we're talking, he's a superstar in certain markets and certain things. Connor was a worldwide, like, almost phenomenon.
Mhm.
The things he was doing. So, like, and then Mayweather obviously was the biggest boxer in the world, and carried the name weight that it could promote something like that. I don't think that Crawford and Ilya would be anywhere near that. Now, is it a fight that we'd all tune in as fight fans
Of
to
course. Yeah.
see? Absolutely. Like, anybody who knows fighting would do it. But we're talking that other fight crossed generation. It crossed all platforms. Anybody, there was so much hype and so much things on the Conor, Mayweather fight that everybody watched.
Mhm.
Everybody was involved in that in the world. So I don't think that there's that kind of clamoring right now for something like that. It'd be an interesting fight, but I mean, stepping into, again, I just don't like MMA fighters stepping into somebody's world who is just the best that they do. Like, it's so different than what we do.
Yeah.
I would love to see them step into our world. We all know what would happen.
Yeah.
So for MMA, we're going over to their world, and they're always gonna end up. I mean, they've been doing that since they're 4 years old. These guys, and not to say Ilia's boxing is phenomenal, but you're talking about boxing the best boxer in the world right now. I don't see that going well. I could be wrong, but I hate that the MMA always has to go to boxing. I'd love to see boxing come to MMA a few times,
Mhm.
and let's even it out. I'm absolutely all in if we go, hey, you sign one for boxing, we'll
Yeah,
sign for MMA,
exactly.
and we're doing MMA first because
Yeah,
I know as soon as the boxing happens, you're gonna back out of this shit.
yeah.
So
That
I
no,
would
no.
love to see that. I think we need an even playing field when it comes to that.
Most important question I'm going to ask you in this interview: have you bought your Mitch Marner jersey yet for the Golden Knights? Slow
I,
it down a little bit.
I not yet.
Mhm.
I'm a big Eichel fan, so I'm not gonna go.
Oh,
You know,
fair
I'm
enough.
not
Fair
gonna
enough.
go.
Yeah, you got to be loyal
I'm
to
not
the.
gonna go
Yeah,
against
yeah,
Eichel yet.
yeah.
But if Marner, it's a very similar kind of situation.
Mhm.
Marner coming over, kind of having a discord with his old team,
Mhm.
and again, I'll say this always through and through that I think that the Vegas Golden Knights front office has to be one of the best in the league to pull off what they've pulled off and do it how they've done it and be competitive into the Stanley Cup Finals every year.
Mhm.
We're right there if we're not there, and so to pull off a big deal like that and bring a guy over, and they take risks on things that a lot of people wouldn't take risks on.
Mhm.
So if anybody can make this work, I know it's the Golden Knights, and I mean that guy adds obviously a piece to us that just, I mean, he's a superstar in the making too.
Mhm.
That guy fills some holes that we had last year, but we need somebody to step up and become that number one scorer.
Mhm.
Eichel's almost become such a team guy. He almost led the league in assists in points last year, but most of them were assists. We need that guy who's going to get that 30, 40 points consistently. And hopefully Marner and him can get it together and they both can do it because you're talking about two of the best stick handlers in the business. Like those guys are phenomenal. So as a fan, it's awesome to see that trade and see that happen. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, and maybe Marner does do it because he was always in the shadow of Austin Matthews in Toronto, right? So maybe this time he's kind of there. And my prediction is he's going to thrive in Vegas. I think you don't have the media pressure. You're in a great environment. I mean, just look at all the players. Like they did the behind the scene things on Prime. Like they're loving playing in Vegas. I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah.
It's just very well
Yeah.
set up. And it's a well run organization. Like you said, they're taking big swings. My only concern, and I don't know how you feel about this, I think this Petrolangelo not playing is a big concern on the back end because they've relied on him a lot the last couple seasons. I do
Yeah.
think they will pull off a trade to get someone. I know Rasmus Anderson's name been out there with Calgary. They have obviously history with them getting Noah Hannafin. But what are your thoughts on the defense? Because it's good. Like I think you got Hannafin, you got Theodore, but gets a little shaky after that. I think so. Is there a concern there from you?
I mean, we've always been a deep team,
Mhm.
but Petrangelo is such a big staple here
Yeah.
for so long.
Yeah.
Like that's a name that just goes synonymous with the Golden Knights. So I really feel like we need to, we probably need to fill that hole. And I believe that here's the thing with the Knights is that if they feel that they're not competent with the team, they will go out and get somebody.
Yeah.
Like there is
They're
no
quick to
doubt
make
in this
moves. Yeah.
team. They are not a team, like I said, that is afraid to go out there and make big, big moves,
Mhm.
and piss everybody off moves. So I really think that like they have a great front office. I think the coaching staff is phenomenal. And I believe that if they feel that they don't have what they need, that they will go out there and get him. I would like to see him. I would like to see him go get somebody to kind of like replace and fill that. I would like to see one more big defensive name come in, but I'm not worried because so they're so good. They're so good at what they do. They're like the UFC of hockey. They'll make big crazy moves and do things, and they just know what they're doing. And so until they fail on that, I trust them.
Good stuff. By the way, I see the Rampage arcade in the background, which is great. I know you're a retro guy. Have you been to Player One in Vegas before, the barcade that's there?
Yeah, I've been to all of them, man.
Oh, you
I
have?
love
I think that's one of the best ones that I've been to. Like I was just
for
in one
sure.
actually this weekend. I was just visiting in Toronto. They opened a new barcade there, but that one in Vegas, it's pretty awesome what they've done with it.
It is. It's great. Great retro arcade. Everything is in there. I love. I've got a few more over here. I've got about ten arcades all set
So
up,
you got
and
your own arcade at home, basically, which is
yeah,
nice. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I really just love like coming in my room and just sitting here with them on. I don't even have to play them. I just like being around them.
yeah,
It was always my goal as a kid. So that was probably one of the first things I did was like,
yeah.
hey, I'm gonna have my own little arcade, and it's awesome to be able to come in and I've got Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Pac-Man, Galaga, Star Wars, all the stuff, and come in here and play with my kid. He'd be like, Dad, can we play Street Fighter? Can we play Mortal Kombat? So it like takes me back to my youth. So I just like being in the atmosphere of it.
Yeah, I got behind this camera. I got a one of those. It's a Street Fighter arcade cabinet, but I put in like one that's got like all the games, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've got a
Yeah.
cocktail arcade table that's got 100 games on it. And same thing. My kids come in, they're all down to
I've
play
got the
some.
cocktail one right there.
Oh, you do? Okay,
So
let's here.
yeah,
Let's get this full screen there. Yeah, that's perfect.
it's down there. I've got that one. I've got that one's got a few hundred, and then I've got the custom cabinet too. That's got like
Yeah.
the 50,000 games on it, and then yeah, I just like I said, I like coming in here and kicking them on and just sitting back and chilling.
Yeah, and I'll let you get to it, man. Thanks so much for doing this. Looking forward to the fight. Anything you got to mention before we get out of here? I know you got a bunch of fighters that are going to be competing up here soon, but anything you want to mention before we get out of here? I'll give you the floor.
Hey, go to the MMA awards. We're syndicate and everybody for the MMA awards this year is nominated. So if everybody can go out and vote for the team, vote for Merab, vote for the gym, Nazim Sadikov, myself, coach of the year. We got a lot of cool things coming up. So we're trying to hopefully we end the year on a big one with that. So that'd be awesome. So everybody get out there and vote. That'd be cool.